innovative.
Today is going to be a different episode. I'm here with an outgoing member of parliament. He's been in parliament for the past 12 years, roughly. And he is the member of parliament for the Odododio constituency, a constituency when during elections, while you mentioned the name, a lot of people marvel. I should say we are lucky to have you because you're a very, very busy man. Yeah, very busy man. Because I recall when we contacted you and we were expecting to have it. Well, we thank you so much for making time to
I'm privileged to be
come
here.
join us. So we know you were MP. You were first a broadcast journalist.
Yeah.
And then from nowhere we heard that you are at GBC, and from nowhere we heard that you are going to Parliament and you are going to stand on the ticket of the NDC. And gladly you won the seats. So 2013 till now. Someone will ask, well, when you look at the MRP of the Global Info Analytics, it says that if elections are held today, the NDC is going to get majority of the seats in Parliament. So someone will ask, why are you leaving Parliament?
Well, thank you very much. Let me say this. Yes, I was a broadcaster and I was enjoying my work, but I've always been a political being. Even when I was a broadcaster, I've secretly held the position of a ward secretary in the Odododio constituency from 1992 to 1996. I was also an assembly member, elected assembly member at the AMA. And so secretly, I've been part of the NDC. But going back into history, as far back as 1992, I was the presumptive parliamentary candidate for the NCP. And then the alliance brought us together because my father's background was a CPP. And at that time, he was so much instrumental in the affairs of the CPP. So he wanted me to carry on the CPP. But because I've been a kidder throughout, I had an argument with him. So they were waiting for me to decide if I would be on the ticket of the NCP, and I declined. So I finally ended up. In fact, the forms were brought to me in the house by the late Comrade Butawia and the rest, Pastor Kwashi and the rest. But I delayed because I wanted to see the consummation of the alliance. So when the alliance came up and it was decided that the seat must go to the NDC, I decided to contest. So I tried to contest. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, and Honorable Ishmael Aite was made the parliamentary candidate and he won. So I continued to serve in various capacities in the constituency, executive member from that time until the year 2002. So 2002, I contested the primaries and won. I won so overwhelmingly. But then in 2004, an unfortunate incident happened when I was arrested on suspicion of having induced some people to get involved in double registration. So I was actually prevented from going to Parliament. I stepped down in September and made my campaign manager, the late Samuel Yukwe Mankata, the candidate, and he won. Unfortunately, he passed in 2005. So we had a by-election, and our then constituency youth organizer, Honorable Jonathan Takikome, became the candidate and he won. So we've retained the seat from that time. I decided to give Takikome the second chance because it was not good to just after one term. So he did quite well. So 2012, we had a primaries. I won the primaries, but we worked together. Takikome and I worked together. And then we succeeded in retaining a seat, and we retained a seat out to today. The party, I would say, is much stronger now in the constituency than before, in spite of the difficulties we had in choosing a parliamentary candidate for the 2024 election. On Sunday, we got ourselves united, and we had a great walk. It was quite a huge mammoth walk. And from that time, the signals are becoming much more clearer that we are on course to retain the seat. But you said, it is not only the audio, it is in my position as the chairman of the Greater Accra Caucus in Parliament, my interest is to make sure that we win more seats in addition to the 20 we have, and not to lose any of the 20. We are working towards that. We have developed strategies. We know that it's a formidable and very difficult, let me say, intention and task. But then it is something we are sure that we'll be able to achieve. At least, if nothing at all, we will try and win Ayaso West Wagon. We'll try and win Botiano English from, and we're also looking at winning Tema West. Yes. And we're working seriously in taking back the seat we lost to the MPP in Amasaman. So, by the grace of God Almighty, we are looking at between 25, 24 seats in 2025.
That's very interesting. So, even though you are leaving Parliament, it's nice to know that you've not left everyone just aloof like that. You are putting your hands on the wheel to make sure that things really happen.
The good leader is the one who is able to make sure that he leaves a legacy. And so the legacy I will be leaving first as a member of Parliament is to make sure the seat is retained. The legacy I will be leaving as the chairman of the Greater Accra Caucus in Parliament is to make sure that we either retain the seats we have, the 20 seats we have, or we add. It will be, let me say, it will not be wise, it will not be good, it will not serve my interest, it will not be creditable if by the time I'm bound out as the chairman of the caucus, we have less than 20 seats in Parliament.
It means you've not added any good things.
So I'm determined. We're going to work extremely hard. We already putting up things. People are not really seeing the work we are doing because we are doing a much more
submarine work.
Yes. We are doing much more of underground work. And then when we come out to the surface and we hit, people will understand why we've been quiet all this while. But let me be frank with you. All my members of parliament who are parliamentary candidates are doing so well. They are very determined to retain their seats. The parliamentary candidates we've had, the new ones, we are supporting them to be able to make impact and to win their seats.
That's very fine. One other thing too is we learned recently you were in Kenya as an MP, still being on the case of being an MP. You're in Kenya. And I think on one of our pages, we learned that you were part of the MPs over there. We heard there was some MPP MPs where they were like, oh, then we heard that you're also there. And we got a bit worried. Can you run us a bit about what really happened over there?
Well, Kenya was a good lesson. Seriously speaking, I got myself in a situation where I'm trying to take positives out of the dangerous and the difficult and the traumatic situation we went through. It wasn't something that you want to relieve, but then to me as a person, as a politician, it was a very, very painful but educating and very profitable experience because I learned a lot. The cardinal thing I learned is the fact that when you have been entrusted with a position, you use that position to serve the interests of the people who put you there. The responsibility of a politician must move away from himself to the people who have, by the grace of Almighty God, give him the opportunity to serve. That is what a lot of African politicians have been very, oblivious of. But then the Kenyan experience, even though it's not something that we must be happy about, the violence and all those things, the killings and all the deaths, we must be happy about. But if that is what is going to change the perception, the behavior, the attitude, the character of African leaders, so be it. Because many a time, we tend to be self-important than the people who we are supposed to serve. And if you take the various principles of leadership, servant leadership, transformational leadership is the best two methods and the two principles that all philosophers have identified. So if African leaders and all politicians in Africa will adopt transformative servant leadership method and approach to leadership, I think Africa will change. The paradigm will change, our perspectives will change, the world will begin to see African politicians as what we are supposed to be and not the sort of negativity that we've had and we've been smeared with in the past.
Yeah, and it is going to bring a lot of developments in the system.
Yes.
And having brain drain in our system is also going to see a decline.
Yes, because most of the young ones coming up, the youth will have confidence in the system, and they want to rather stay and contribute to the development of their society, their communities, and their countries than going outside and go through some, let me say, harrowing experiences. Sometimes they are not treated as human beings, but because of the situation back home, they prefer to go through those deplorable service and living conditions in order to get the sort of remuneration that they desire. So if we can improve upon our system, our socio-economic systems, and then be able to entice the youth to stay and work in our communities, in our country, and pay them well, and make them have a very meaningful welfare society, I don't think any youth will want to leave the shores of Ghana and Africa and go out.
That's a very true thing you've said. So I want us to delve into when you're a sports minister, youth and sports minister actually.
Yeah.
There were rumors that you had issues with football people. The rumors you had issues with football people.
Oh God, I wish you didn't bring this up.
Let's just juxtapose that to what we have currently, where we saw the amputee team coming back from the African amputee competition, and they went to see the former president. He gave them some donations, and then we had the youth and sports minister having a serious issue with that. From your perspective, how do you think he should have handled? Do you agree with how he handled the situation and all that?
No. He didn't handle the situation well. One, you see, as a minister, you must be responsible to the sportsmen and women who have been entrusted upon you to take care of and to manage. And as such, their interests must be much more paramount to you than the interests of political persons and individuals. Let me say this. I felt his response to the action of the amputee team was irresponsible, very unnecessary, and very unexpected and unwarranted of somebody occupying that position. In the sense that, let me say this, the nation which does not honor its heroes is not worth dying for. So you have a team that has gone through difficulties and challenging moments in going to a competition. When they were there throughout the period, you did not even have the opportunity to even call them once to encourage them. That even could have been motivational enough for them. They won the competition and come home. You did not even receive them at the airport. If it had been the Black Star players, the minister will go and sleep at the airport to receive them. He didn't do that because they are amputees. Under normal circumstances in our cultural and traditional setting, those are the people who should receive much more attention than we, the abled ones. So when they met me at the funeral of the legendary Awulekwe Senior at the State House and complained that they've been back for 2 weeks now, they've not had the opportunity to meet with the minister, but then they know they have a father in John Dramani Mahama, who since 2016 has been so much interested in their welfare and in the team. They want to go and visit him. So I placed a call to His Excellency, the former president, and he said he will get back to me. Within 6 hours, he got back to me and said I should talk to his manager, Callistus. So I talked to Callistus, and within 48 hours, we arranged a meeting. That morning, incidentally, when they were going to meet with John Mahama, they were given 12. So the chairman of the amputee team informed the minister duly that they've invited by President John Dramani Mahama at 12. So if he could meet them before the time, as if he anticipated what was going to happen, the minister still did not have time for them. So they had no option but to go to John Dramani Mahama. And the good patriotic citizen he is, he made a donation to them as an example to many other Ghanaians who also do same. And truly, after they've left John Mahama, they got invitations from many other people who contributed. And so when the minister heard it, the pride and the arrogance of this government went into him. And like the Bible said, the good spirit from the Lord departed from him, and the evil spirit descended upon him. So, yes, so you could see that he lost everything. And the way he even talked to them, his demeanor, his composure, and the tone, and the orders he gave them were totally not in sync with the position he's occupying as a public servant. And I think many other people have condemned him. And I think that if I were him, after that, I would have come out with an apology and try and organize something that will. You see, the good thing is that we live in this country and we have seen examples. So the Black Stars won a tournament, a boxer goes to win a crown, and we organize a very nice reception to receive them. And then they go to the presidency. From the presidency, we host them in some of the topmost hotels, let them have lunch and enjoy themselves. Why are we treated to a very shabby, let me say, reception when the amputee team has gone to win a tournament like that? And you see, this team is a team that is not getting any attention. They went through difficult times. In fact, I had even forgotten that the guy who won the most valuable player at the tournament was somebody I personally sponsored to Turkey. I had totally forgotten. In the presence of John Dramani Mama, he said, I should be thankful. I said, what? He's grateful, but for me, he wouldn't be who he is. I said, wow, what is it? What did I do? Then he reminded me that in 2017, when I was even not the minister anymore, yes, he came to me that he's gotten a foreign contract to go and play a team outside. He needed support to buy a ticket, and I willingly gave him money. I do not even remember. I've forgotten about it. Then he reminded me. Two other persons came and said, yes, you did this to me, you did this to me. That is what we want to see. That the people who are contributing, sacrificing for the nation will be appreciated not only by the state, but by individuals and other, because that's what pertains in other parts of the world. People appreciate people for what they do. So, look, as we are talking today, a young lady, Paulini, is playing the Wimbledon. He's reached the semi-finals. Go and see what is happening in Italy. She's been worshipped. She has not even won the title yet, but she's been worshipped even for reaching that. Let me the European Championship going on, the Euros. The fact that Turkey have reached this level, they are being worshipped. So sometimes it's not about money, but the sort of attention that is given to a sportsman will encourage and motivate that person to do better the next time. So I think that the minister's action was bad, and I think we should all condemn it, but then we should all be encouraged to support the government, whoever government is in place, to be able to motivate, inspire, and let me say, make sportsmen and women enjoy the sports they are in.
That's a very interesting analysis. With talking about His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, he's come here during the launch of the space, and he emphatically said that he was going to create a youth development ministry. Per what he said, it means that they are going to detach the youth ministry from the sports ministry, from the youth and sports. So it's going to be a sports ministry and then a youth development ministry. I want to get your thoughts on it. What do you think about it? What do you think he can add or take away from that particular ministry to make sure it's a very strong ministry? You know, the MPP came, they had the Zongo Development Ministry, and within 3 or 4 years, it had to fall to the ground. But from your experience as youth and sports minister, what would you add to making sure that ministry becomes a so and correct ministry?
Let me say, this is something that has been on the table of John Dramani Mahama long ago. I remember very well when we were discussing the issue of the sort of pressure on the Ministry of Youth and Sports. We sometimes make the ministers tend to look at sports alone. The youth development becomes a problem. To the extent when I became minister, one thing I saw is that our youth development centers have all been, allowed to deteriorate and virtually become distinct. They were there in infrastructure, but they're not in quality of, let me say, impartation of knowledge and conscientization that it was meant for. So I talked to my former minister when I was deputy minister for trade. He was the minister. At that time, he has moved to the Minister of Employment. That's Honorable Idrisu. And that, yes, if I was former youth organizer of the NDC. So we had an agreement, MOU, between the Ministry of Employment and the Minister of Youth and Sports, where they were going to give us 5% of the total amount realized from the levy that is meant for youth development, so that we can look at the youth training centers, Afenya, and all those other places, and also revamp them. That was what we wanted to do. I also personally got involved in the reactivation and redevelopment and the reorientation of the Boy Scouts Association, the Girls Guides, St. John's Ambulance, and all these youth groups. Because I may be a conservative, I may be of the old stock, but I believe that the youth of today, the Gen Zs, have a lot to learn, and they will rather become much more valuable to society if, as part of their development, they keep on with the objectives and the missions of all these youth development groups, the St. John's Ambulance, so they become used to what it is to be dedicated to support people, the victims and injured people, the Boy Scouts Association, the Girls Guides, the YMCA, the YWCA, and all these youth groups, the Ahmadiyya Youth Movement, and all Ghana Muslim Youth Movement, and all those things that we used to have. Today, not much attention is given. I even participated in the 3-day workshop of the Boy Scouts Association at the Achimota Forest, so that my listen was to, as a minister, give an example to what leadership is supposed to do in order to activate and re-engineer and revive those groups. So John Mahama's intention to set up that ministry will let us have a new outlook for youth development. Yes, we don't want to say that we will box the youth, but then as part of their development, the national orientation must not be lost on them. Every Ghanaian youth must be imbibed with that belief in Ghana and the need for him or she to appreciate the need to sacrifice a bit for the development of the country. Like what Americans are taught right from day one. They are taught about what they can do for their country and not what their country can do for them. It's a principle. Every child, every American child, go through that orientation. Through our youth development ministry, we can make every Ghanaian child, no matter he or she, no matter the age, the upbringing, the religious affiliation, and the culture and the tradition, have a sense of belief in giving something out to the country. Once we do that, it will reduce corruption, it will reduce our level of unpatriotism, it will also inculcate discipline and national identity in the child. Today, let me be frank with you, I sit here and I'm not happy about the plethora of foreign cultures that we see on our various television networks. You see these serials and things like that, and look at the level of, let me say, penetration in social media. If we don't also have a system whereby through a certain structure we can at least continue to give our youth some part of our culture and tradition, we may be bringing up foreigners as nationals. And so Jomame's idea of establishing and setting up youth development ministry is very important. We have it in some African countries. So what they've done is that they separated the youth ministry from the sports ministry. So we have sports and recreation, and we have youth and culture, which used to be the case in the old Achampong administration between 1972 and all. They used to have that ministry. So I think it's a good idea, and every Ghanaian must be happy about it, especially the youth of this country must be happy about it. It will also help us to be able to identify a very distinct curricula for higher education of the youth. The MPP have messed up with the development of the youth. Today you take the subjects we do in school, and you don't see anything that really relates to the youth identify themselves as Ghanaians. Going through the sort of, I went through a system where by the time I got to the university, I have learned something about all the cultures of Ghana. So I could fit in, I could adapt to every culture when I travel outside Accra. I may be a Ghan, but I could identify with any other Ghanaian culture and tradition because of the sort of education I had. And that cannot be compared with what my children are having today. My children have become Ghanaians, but they are also foreigners because they know more about Tupac and all those people more than they know about Kwame Ampedu and Amachi Dede and Amanziba. You understand? They know more about Dwayne Johnson and all those things than they know about Baba Yara and Joseph Tukefio. So it is important that even though the foreign cultures are there, we have a situation whereby we also continue to fill in with our national and traditional cultures so that our children will grow. So right now the education we have an education whereby if you don't force your child to learn the local dialect, the mother tongue, your child may end up getting educated, but then he cannot even speak his own language. I'm having a problem in my house. It's a struggle to get my children to speak Ga. By school, you spend much more time in school than the house. So if you don't get your child to go to a school where speaking the local dialect is permissible, it becomes difficult. Yes, she said that the law demands that we teach our children from class 1 to class 5 in the local dialect, so that they can. If it's easier to teach a child mathematics in a local dialect than it is in the English language. You understand? And that is what I went through. That is the sort of education we had. Today, our education is adulterated to the extent that it becomes more difficult for our children to appreciate what they are being taught in their own system, in their own traditions and cultures, than it is in their foreign cultures. Recently, I've been saying Ghana is Learning School or something. The channel that Ghana Learn on GTV, and they are using these foreign teletops and things to teach the children, the cartoons to teach the children. I said, can't we develop our own Kwekwananse stories and things to teach our children instead of these teletops and all those things which are alien to us?
What you're saying is very true, because I remember growing up and all that, on Saturdays, GTV, everyone had to go back to the television, go sit behind the television because we wanted to watch by the fireside.
Wonderful.
Everyone was so excited about it. And you get to learn about the Ghanaian culture. Funny enough, most of the stories you could find the Ghanaian culture through it.
In school, in primary school up to middle school, my best time was when we are doing the culture week.
Or something like that.
Yes. That week we dance various cultures. So as a Ga, I will not only be dancing Balogo, I'll learn how to dance Adowa. Up to today, at least I know how to do the Adowa steps. I know how to dance Agbaja. And now I know how to dance the Gure. All these dances we were taught. We were taught. To the extent that even when I went to the university, my first university exams, I did African studies.
That's serious.
And Lagos, University of Ghana, compulsory. First year, you will do African studies. Either African study, you do dancing, you do drama, you do poetry, one form of arts. And that is good enough. So that even the foreigners who were coming to Ghana to learn were even much more interested in the African culture than us. So you see let me say the dilemma we found ourselves, that we are not learning our culture, we are not learning African culture, and foreigners are rather learning it. And they've come here to get knowledge in that culture. But we are not interested in that. So I think that It's an awakening. It's an ingenious move by John Dramani Mahama, and every Ghanaian must appreciate it. We must vote for him to be able to bring it to pass, and it will change. It will be a revolutionary method to change our educational system and make us more Ghanaian, both in education and in our culture and tradition than we have been for the past decade.
That's very interesting. In his recent media engagement, still on John Dramani Mama, in his recent media engagement, he spoke about the fact that he was not going to invest in building new stadia because of the crisis we find ourselves. The reaction on social media was very amazing. A lot of people liked the honesty because they felt like, well, we are in serious times. So he rather said it will be best for us to renovate most of the stadia we have and encourage more people to go into the various stadia to watch our Ghana Premier League. From your point of view, what do you think is lacking in the GPL that has made a lot of people no longer really much interested in filling our stadia? Because I remember when I was growing up, we used to sometimes sneak to the stadium to go watch Hearts play against any team, as long as it's Hearts of Oak. And you get there, if you don't go on time, the stadium is very, very full. So what do you think we can do to get this back on track in that Heart?
When I was young, we used to go and sleep at the stadium even to have opportunity to watch Hearts and Olympics, let alone Hearts and Kotoko. Yes, Hearts and Olympics was a big thing. Local derby in Accra, forget it. If you go to the stadium even at 8 o'clock in the morning of Sunday, you will not get a space. You see, we need to look at our football holistically. Football has become much more self-centered and business for greedy and selfish people. We are no more interested in seeing football as a method of galvanizing the people, bringing our people together, and to appreciate what we have. The people in football are people who have decided to see football as business for themselves and not as development for the country. And we need to change that orientation. One, if the NDC, or when the NDC comes into government in 2025, even if I do not get opportunity to be Minister for Youth and Sports, what I will insist my government...
Minister for Sports.
Yes.
Because there will be no youth and sports.
Yes.
So yes.
What are we expecting the government of John Dramani Mahama to do, as he himself said, is to incentivize the football clubs, the Premier League clubs, to give attention to their reserve side and also nurture coast clubs. Because I used to play at Accra Sports Stadium as a coast player. After that, the reserve side will play. So when I became a member of the House of Oak, the Auroras team, I had opportunity to play at Accra Sports Stadium before the main team will come and play. So you pay 100 cedis, you go to the stadium, you have a whole day of entertainment. Some people go to the stadium and they see the stadium as stress reliever.
Just like in England.
Yes. They leave their house and go to the stadium. That's where they spend their whole day. So today, even if the Premier League is not interesting, it's not attractive, you may enjoy the reserves, you may enjoy the coast football. So you get value for your money. That is something I believe John Dramani Mahama's government will do for our Premier League clubs. He said we'll motivate them, we'll try and pay them some stipends to them.
Yeah.
Those stipends are conditioned, or will be conditioned, on the teams improving their reserve side and also having coast clubs. When I was growing up, Accra House of Oak used to have Has babies in Adraka, they have King Harrison babies in Mamprobi, they had Has babies in Tema. And from all these clubs, they could easily get talent for Auroras. That's why it was not difficult for Accra House of Oak when they sacked the senior players to get young ones to form the foundation of the musical youth. But for that decision, but for having those clubs, they would have gotten the Shamokwe's, the Joe Ados, the Bladekumes, the Karajamas, Neashites, Anyeteso West, Thomas Quays, and the rest, Gokepa Bekwe and the rest, to be the bedrock of the new Accra House of Folk. It's because they had these coast clubs. So it's important that we bring that thing back. It will bring the interest. Two, I also believe that the sort of corruption, the endemic corruption within our football must be tackled once and for all. I talk about greed. We have people within the football system who are, one, owners of multiple clubs. Two, managing players. Three, managing technical people. Four, they themselves being agents.
They'll be thinking about themselves.
So, conflict of interest all around. So those players are only interested in making sure that they create opportunity for their players to be marketed, to get into a national team, to the exclusion of otherwise much more talented and better players who do not have anybody to create opportunities for them. So sometimes our national team is not filled with the best Ghanaian players around. Look, today, let me say this. Yesterday, I watched Canada and Argentina. And I saw a Ghanaian boy, Lai. And I was so happy.
Very true.
Austria, we saw Danso playing the defense for Austria. In fact, we've seen more than 10 Ghanaian-born players in the European Cup. You understand? That should tell you that if opportunities had been created and there's a level playing field for every Ghanaian everywhere on the planet, we could get the best and not the ones we have today in our national team who would demand appearance fees of $10,000, $15,000 before they play a match. You understand me? Those Ghanaian players playing in those countries, they don't get those things. They don't get those motivations. They don't get those incentives. But they willingly play for those countries. You understand? I have opportunity to talk to many Ghanaian players out there. And they think that the ideology itself is wrong. They've not been nurtured in the sort of ideology that permits them to charge the country before they play for the country. I'm being frank with you. So we need to look at this issue. Our Premier League, not the Premier League alone, we can't continue to be concentrating on the Premier League to the detriment of the Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, the coast football. There's no way. We can't continue to develop our sports when we do not pay attention to school sports. It is not possible. All the best athletes from Jamaica came through school sports. All the best sportsmen from America, USA, came through colleges. Today, most of the players who recently were picked up in the NBA were from colleges. France, Switzerland, Ukraine, other places. Almost 90% of the players who are playing in the NBA and are the best players at one point or the other were recruited from the colleges. 90% of all the US athletes, those who have qualified for the Olympics, are from the schools, the colleges. 95% of all the Jamaican athletes are from the schools. You cannot plant cocoyam and hope to harvest plantain.
On that note of a plantain, we know you are the chairman of the Greater Accra Caucus in Parliament. I want you to look into the camera, speak to the youth of the NDC and the youth in general, and also those in Greater Accra about the need for change and why they need to vote for John Dramani Mahama come December 7th, 2024.
Youth of Ghana, I am Nii Lante Vanderpuye, your former minister. It is my desire to make sure that the youth perspective is achieved. There's a future for Ghanaian youth. You've been disappointed in the past 7.5 years. This is a time for you to build a future for yourself. This is the time for you to entrust your future in the hands of someone who can be trusted. John Dramani Mahama and Professor J. Nana Pokwajiman would build a future for you that is built on trust, credibility, and hope. Jobs under the 24-hour economy will be there for you. You won't be an unemployed graduate. Even when you cannot get to the level of tertiary education, there will be a job for you to do under the 24-hour economy. Your future is in the 24-hour economy. Vote John Dramani Mahama and Professor J. Nana Pokwajiman for a brighter future. Let's reset Ghana on a course to the development based upon jobs for the youth. I thank you, and I know that for your own future and the future of your junior brothers and your children to come tomorrow, as a father, you look at me and do what is in the interest of your future. Vote for a change. Vote for John Dramani Mahama.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been a very interesting conversation. I didn't want us to end, but he's a very busy man, so we have to let him go. But we are very excited to have him, and we are very humbled. God bless you so much for coming. We'll be very glad to have your comments, and make sure you share, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be glad to see some of the reels on your YouTube and also on your statuses. It's me once again, Kelebele Kem Talks. You can call me the ambassador. See you some other time.